The world is changing, and Africa's time is now. We've got the talent, the resources, and the spirits. Let's not let anyone else tell our story. How about we write it ourselves? Politics is quite interesting, however you look at it, from whichever perspective that you look at it from. I am heavily intrigued by how different political systems are in different countries, in America, and particularly in Africa, and how different the big divide is. And so I try to think, does political system influence each other? Do we try to learn something from another political country? Do we try to put it in our own context? Do you think it will work to that effect? It becomes a tricky question because at the end of the day, it's the politicians who want to benefit more by taking the lead and not necessarily what it's really supposed to be. It's all about taking control of the public, so to speak. But today, I want to speak about one politician who I think a lot of people continue to misunderstand and continue to buy. But if you look differently, you might understand and learn a thing or two. So I'm asking the question, what can Africa learn from Donald Trump? You know, Donald Trump is known in every corner of the world. Whether loved or criticized, his presence looms large, even here in Africa. But what's interesting is that amidst the controversies and bold statements that he makes, Trump has expressed interest in Africa in ways that deserve our attention. When Trump was president, his approach to Africa wasn't always conventional. There were sharp criticism, like his famous remarks that shook global headlines that Africa must be recolonized. But beyond that, there's a layer to rediscover. Trump's interest in Africa wasn't really about the handout and the foreign aid. It was business potential. And that is something I want to try and learn from. Trump at his core is a businessman. Whether you agree with this method or not, his worldview is shaped by transactions, deals, and opportunities. He didn't see Africa as a place in need of charity. He saw it as a continent of untapped potential. And that, my friends, is a lesson for Africa itself. We need to see ourselves not as a recipient of aid, but as a global pair ready to harness our own power. One of Donald Trump's key approaches was to view everything through the lens of opportunity. Africa, with its rich resources, growing economies, and youthful population, has immense opportunities. Trump's focus on trade agreements, partnerships, and negotiations highlights a critical lesson to this. Africa doesn't need to wait for the world's help. It needs to position itself as a continent of opportunity, ready to engage with the global market in its own terms. Look at the world around us. The West, the East, both have eyes on Africa. Why is that? Because they see what we sometimes fail to see in ourselves. Africa's potential is massive. Trump, despite his diverse rhetoric, Trump treated international relations as business deals. And Africa should do the same. We should negotiate from our position of strength, making sure that our resources benefit our people first. But there's something to it than just business. Trump, whether we like it or not, believed in boldness. He makes moves others hesitate to make, and that is a lesson for Africa. Africa must be bold in its vision, unafraid to disrupt the status quo, unafraid to challenge traditional global dynamics. We don't have to conform to the narratives that have been given and have been written for us. Let us think about the future. Africa's youth are amongst the most dynamic in the world. We are creative, we are innovative, we are hungry for change, but we can't wait for someone else to open the door. Trump's legacy, flawed as it may be, teaches us that sometimes You have to build your own door. Africa must take charge of its narrative, its resources, and its future. Africa's need to recognize its place in the global economy is not as a subordinate, but as an equal partner. Trump's focus on bilateral deals rather than multilateral deals shows that we don't need to follow everyone's path. We can just chart our own course, negotiating deals and prioritize African interests. It is also important to note that Trump's presidency wasn't about hand-holding and dependency. If Africa is to learn from his approach, it's this: self-reliance is key. We don't need to depend on foreign aid. Instead, we should focus on trade and build industries and nurturing our own talents. Our strength lies in our ability to stand on our own 2 feet. Now, I know that some of you might be thinking Trump's wasn't perfect. You are very right. That's just one thing to take from his time in office. It's his unapologetic drive to put his interests first. Africa must learn to do exactly the same. We must be unapologetic in prioritizing Africa's development, Africa's industries, and African people. No more waiting for handouts. No more playing second fiddle. We have the resources. We have the people. What we need now is the mindset. A mindset that says we belong at a table, not as guests, but as equals. Trump's model of leadership, for all its flaws, reminds us that we can and should fight for what is ours. We should protect our interests fiercely and negotiate with the world from a position of strength and not weakness. So, what can Africa learn from Donald Trump? It's not about adopting his politics or his controversies, no. It's about learning to see ourselves differently, to be bold, to be unapologetic, to negotiate our place in the world with confidence. Africa, it's time to stop waiting for the world to save us. It's time we realize that we have the power to save ourselves. The world is changing, and Africa's time is now. We've got the talent, the resources, and the spirits. Let's not let anyone else tell our story. How about we write it ourselves, boldly and unapologetically? And with the knowledge, we deserve the success that is coming our way. The road ahead may not always be easy, but it is ours to drive. Just like Trump navigated his own path, still is, we must navigate our own journey. The future is ours. We're not a spectator. We are players. Now, let us chart our own course into the future that we create for our own selves.